guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. Man, that's some frustrating stuff right there. I got to shoot all the way from the very beginning, and I got to recap everything. Gentlemen, I had 2 segments for this video that I can't even find. I don't know what happened to them. They got lost in the shuffle between all the different amplifiers I've worked on. So this is Mr. R's ass kicker. It was personally built for him by Stickman himself. He told me on the phone that the reason it showed up here is because Stickman used to talk kind of highly of me, and he'd watched several videos and he's impressed, and so he wanted me to run through the lap with him. So I said, cool. Now, me being me, I covered all of these topics in the first little bit of video that I did. And we talked about quite a many different little things in that first little hunk of video. And then I went on to say, okay, well, this whole 2-pill section is burned up in this box. Let's go ahead and repair it. And then we sat down and we talked about why Mr. R wanted to have 2879s put in it. Well, since that little section of video is now MIA, I've got to address all those things. Mr. R here has himself a very, very hot rod Stickman radio that supposedly does 80 watts peak. Now you, me, everybody else on the face of the earth would tell you, no, we don't want to put an 80 watt radio into a 2x4. Okay. Well, Stickman always told him keep it low and he'd be alright. So he ran a box like that for quite some time, and he's driving down the road and he bumped it, and that's all it wrote. So then he said he sent it here. Well, in the process of working on things, the segments of video that got left out would have shown you that what was in there was HG 2290s. Okay. Well, I come to the conclusion that the reason that the 2290s went away on this thing is because he ran them with an 80 watt radio. That'd be the equivalent of taking and hitting it with a striker into a 2 driving 4. We all know that the striker, from many other videos, we've demonstrated this striker is way too much drive for two 2290s. So I said, well, if you want to keep running that Stickman radio, let's split the difference and set you up for success. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, let's put 2879s in there, but I'm going to put like a 10 dB attenuator in front. And he goes, a what, and a what? And I said, a 10 dB attenuator. Now, my good friend over Big Rig Radio, I'm having to recreate this because I've already shot all of this video. My good friend over Big Rig Radio saw these in an estate sale someplace, and he grabbed all of these up for me. These are actual RF Power Components Inc. Okay, the RFP 20. These are made in 2003. Warning, contains beryllium, so don't chop this up and ingest it. It'll give your pee-pee cancer and all other parts of your body. These are actual attenuators, not some tricky little resistors or nothing. Actual real deal attenuators. I said, I have these attenuators and we can stick them in there. The attenuators are going to suck up a bunch of power and make it so that it's going to be a little bit harder for your high drive competition radio to overdrive your amp. Now, the 2879, as we all know, can take a little bit more drive than the 2290. So we're going to split the difference. He goes, what do you mean? I said, we'll stick with the Stickman output transformer that's in there. So the transformer is going to get saturated to a point where it's not going to be able to put that much more drive into the 4-pill section, and it's going to allow you to have a little bit of a safety margin. So between the input attenuator and the small output transformer in this box, you should be all right. And he goes, cool, sounds like a plan, get on and do it. So we got on and did it. So I get the whole 2-pill section rebuilt, and I go to fire down on it, because the final section in this box are these guys. SRF 3662s. This was the predecessor to the 2879. This was the hottest hot rod transistor that they made. This is a Motorola MRF 422, but with a high gain, a higher gain than the 422 on it, and that's an RF parts number, the SRF 3662. Please feel free to Google that or YouTube search it. I did a whole video on the 3662s and how they have a higher voltage tolerance and they have a lot of other good positive advantages going for them. Okay. Well, I go to fire down on the 4-pill section, and lo and behold, the whole 4-pill section is acting like the transistors have been hooked up backwards. There was not a single 10 ohm resistor that was burned in this box, but all 4 of these 3662s were chooched, gone, garbage, done, toast, dead, not working, not functional, not here anymore. Let out the magic pixies on the inside, dead shorts. So I called him back. Now, the reason the video footage got lost is because this was like 2 weeks ago that we went down this process. So I'm shooting the video, and then I finally get to the point where I realize the final transistors are toast. And I mean, there's no signs of them being toast. None of the 10 ohmers are burned. None of the input and the output resistors are burned. None of that stuff's gone. It's just not making any power. So I got this video where I pulled all the transistors out, and I test every single one of their shorts. And I said, well, I'm going to have to stop here. I got to contact the customer. Now, me being me, the foolish cat that I am, when I saved his number in my phone, I got the last 2 digits swapped. So I'm calling this guy. There's some dude out there that's got 2 digits that are off from yours, bro. That's got at least 7 missed phone calls from me over the last week and a half, of me trying to reach out and say, hey, man, what do you want to do next? So he finally reaches out to me last night and says, hey, BBI, what are we doing? And I said, dude, I don't know where you've been, man. I said, wait a minute. So I pull out my call log and say, man, I've been trying to call you. So I sent him a screenshot, and he's like, man, that's not even the right phone number. You're a moron. I said, well, this is true. It is. We all have our moments. So we talked. I said, we can go get the SRF 3662s if we can find them. We went and did a quick search on RF Parts' webpage. Guess what? No more. I said, well, we can go get the 442s, but they're even more expensive than the Toshibas, and the Toshibas are $105 a piece right now. And he's like, well, can we do them new HGs? I said, we sure can. So I went ahead and I repilled this with HG 2879s. Now, the 3662s take a completely different loading than the 2879. You're going to have 5 turns on the input, 5 turns on the input, and over here you're going to have 4.5 turns versus 3.5 turns for the 2879. So 2.5 turns on the input, 2.5 turns on the output, and your inputs are all different. It's 270 puff over here on the input on the splitter, and the output's going to be about 120 to 130 puff, where on a 2879 it's going to be 150 puff and 270 puff over here. So we eliminated the voltage divider that's right here, took that resistor out. It's gone. It's this resistor right here. It's gone. We took it out. So I don't have a hot rod radio like what he's got. So we're going to have to emulate it. We're going to have to kind of do a little hit and miss thing. So as I get the box all laid out, and you got to remember, this thing has got a ton of sentimental value attached to it for Mr. R. Okay? His buddy Stick built this thing. So I'm not going to go in here and rip everything out and make it a BBI. We want to keep it Stickman-ish. Okay? Stick built some good boxes. I'm not going to argue with that. And this was a fairly well put together one, so we're trying to keep it still within the Stickman style. So I'm using a Stickman style of caps, a Stickman style of power output. We're doing the Stickman everything in here except for this attenuator, which is going to come into play here in a minute. So first things first, we're going to start out with the 2950. This guy right here. We've got a 5-watt slug between the 2950 and the ass kicker 2x4. 1000-watt slug in peak, 1000-watt slug in average, 5-watt slug in reverse back from the bird 10,000-watt dummy load. Okay, now we're going to lowball this. This usually takes about 30 watts worth of drive. We got the variable all the way open, and the input attenuator has been bypassed on the inside. So first, let's show us talking through it. Good, pass the rest of SWR. That means the radio is able to talk directly through the amplifier with this impedance bump in here and make a pass all the way through down to the dummy load with no reflect, which means this thing's going to have good ears and you're going to be able to talk through it. Here's our drive. Drive. So we're seeing about 6-7 bird over here, about 20 peak watts over here. Now, we're on 15.62 volts, and under operation, it's going to drop down to roughly 14.5. So where you'll be at in operation in the Mobile. I had this hooked up to the battery bank. With the battery bank, the voltage was dropping down to 13.2 volts inside this amp, which is nowhere going to demonstrate what this amplifier does. Got to remember, we got a loose pressure connection here, going to another loose pressure connection here, going through this hunk of cable, and now he tells me that the joints are roughly somewhere in here in this portion, and that they are crimped and soldered. I'm going to leave that alone. He's not interested in having me muck with it. I'm not interested in biting into it. All I'm saying is we got to bump the voltage up a little bit to get the amplifier to do this. 1,000 watts in the corner. 14.5, 14.6, measured inside the amplifier at the distribution rail. Now remember, we're capitalizing on the fact that this output transformer is technically too small. We're doing that for a reason. Remember, he's going to have a hot rod radio hitting this box. So we're using these transistors, the 2879s that are in here, their ability to take more drive. We're utilizing that, but then we're going to capitalize on the fact that we're not going to have the proper amount of saturation in the output transformer to be able to put the full potential of drive into the 4-pil, which would technically be too much. Okay, so we're getting 980 watts out of it. About 400 bird. Let's look at our input tune. 14.4 in that last key down. Now, that's with a 20 watt radio hitting it. So let's look down here at this little RFP attenuator that's in here. You see how I have this wire set up? If you want to use Mr. P in the future, you want to use a low drive radio, like a 30 watt radio, all you got to do is take this wire and go from here on this tab, right here, to here. Exactly the way I have it set up. So now, let's go in here with our smottering iron. Let's pull this thing off. We'll solder that in. Now this is on its own little heatsink surface. We have this attenuator soldered down to the board for a reason. It's to help dissipate the heat out of the attenuator. Our variable is still all the way open. Now I want you to watch and see what it does to the output. Just by adding an actual 10 dB attenuator, watch what happens here. So we just took about 200 watts out of the amp. And about 100 bird. Look at our input tune now. Because now all the RF is seeing is the input attenuator. Okay, next step. Let's do this. All right, next step is we're going to hook up our 955. The reason we're hooking up the 955 is we have to replicate the way he's going to run this amp. Now, I don't suggest, and I know where we'll make a guarantee that if you take an 80 watt hot watt rod radio and run it into this thing, it's going to last in any way, shape, or form. I've just given you the best chances for success, and I think I've made that very clear in this video and while we've been on the phone. Okay. So let's go look at our drive. We've got the 2x4 off. About 80-85 watts. 5 watt slug between the striker and the 2x4. No reflect. Now watch what happens. Look at our voltage drop. Look at our input tune. Everything is low, tight, and right. Now that's the closest that I'm going to be able to come with my radios here on the workbench to being able to emulate what you've got for a radio on your side. Now I guarantee you, your Stickman radio is going to do way more bird than my Striker. Okay? So your bird numbers are going to change. And as you put it to me on the phone, my radio does 80 peak watts on the bench. God only knows what it's actually doing in the truck. And my feelings are exactly the same. This is what this amp does on the workbench. Results may vary when you get this in your truck. I'll be very clear about that. So I'm a little bit nervous about this, I'm not going to lie. Being that it has a variable in there, and that has to stay because we're trying to stay with the Stickman style. Please remember that you're going to leave the variable all the way open and use your radio to vary your dead key on your output power. So, all these little things put together, I think you have the best chance for success that you're going to have. Like I said, I'm going to bag up all these transistors. I don't know why, they're all bad. But I'm going to bag them all up. You said throw them in my bucket. That's great. I'll throw them in the bag. Hell with it. I think that you're going to be pleased. And I tried to stay within the Stickman-esque way of doing things. So, I know that the amp is tuned right. It's obviously producing the power right. The input and output tunes are correct. And I would never in my wildest dreams think I would take a Striker and drive it into a 2x4. But this is the way Stick sets you up, and I want to try and stay true to that theme. So brother, I hope I've done you justice. I feel horrible that I can't find the other segments of video. It just adds more cred to it when we've got the whole stream of thought. You know what I'm saying? So, well guys, on that note, I think I'm done here. My work here is done. The only thing I haven't done is check the fan, which all your label shipping information is taped on the top, so I'm not going to bother with that now, but it will get done before it leaves here. I think you're right. And I think this ass kicker is straight, and I think it's going to live on to see another day. So gentlemen, I'm going to go. Now the only other thing that I would have changed if it was me is I would have changed these two capacitors right here to being metal clads. So I'm still on the fence if I want to do that or not, but I'm pretty sure it's going to last a good long time just the way it sits. Gentlemen, I'm out of here. I'm off to go do other stuff. I got a ton of things going on this weekend, and I need to start getting focused on those ideas, those options, those things now. So on that note, I appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate all the projects, and I'm just trying to do right by everybody. Remember, it's not my job to talk shit. It's just my job to fix a damn amplifier. I appreciate you all, guys. I'll see ya. Bump, bump from the biggest duck in Idaho. I'll see ya. Bye.